Hi, everybody. Yeah, I mean, um, this doesn't come at a very fortuitous or propitious time, using lots of Latin words. Um, our school semester is about to start here in Atlanta, Georgia, at, at my, school that I teach at. Um, but like a lot of really, really dark things have been happening in the world. I'm sorry, the lighting conditions here are so weird, but um, I've been talking with many people in. Um, there's this very tragic situation happening in Southern California, where you know um, homes and entire neighborhoods are being demolished by fires, um, and um, there seem like we are facing a situation where um, there seems to be no logical or like technocratic way to address the problem, and that has endangered many people who are dear to me, and many people who are dear to others. um, I was talking to one of my friends from Southern California, and she was talking about how like she's actually like glad that all these rich people's houses have been destroyed, um, in places like Pacific Palisades, and so forth, um, which I do understand. Like I do understand like that. There's a reason to be angry at the wealthy and the privileged, um, and seeing demolition done to their ways of life and their ways of living, does make sense. I mean, like uh, if you grew up poor as shit as I did, um, then you might harbor some feeling of resentment toward those people and be like, well, looks like something bad happened to you finally. Um, I don't necessarily share this view. Um, I mean, when I see images of the Pacific Palisades um, looking like Dresden in 1945, I'm like, this is really dark as hell. I mean, at the very least, like, um, there are lots of people who probably work for those rich people who live there, and now they're going to be out of jobs, and now they're going to be in danger of losing their homes. Um, I mean, I'm not trying to in any way sort of justify the system that exists, but when a bunch of Southern California goes up in flames, um, there are going to be working class people, mainly like to a large extent women, who are maids or servants or cleaners or cooks or whatever, who are going to have their lives turned upside down. I mean, I'm already talked to so many of my friends in LA who have kind of contingent um, task rabbit types of lives, where everything is like based on like what's the next job I can get. And if this catastrophe is happening, then those working class people are going to be hurt. And as much as I might be inclined to delight in the suffering of rich people, um, I know that the knock-on effects are going to be pretty bad for the people who work for them, like the everyday decent working class people. And so it's not just a sort of a dunk on rich people. I mean, it would be nice if we lived in a world where it was easy to just have a dunk on real people, rich people, but like um, that's not the world we live in. And so, what's happening in Southern California and California in general is scary and catastrophic. Um, and, I lived there for quite a few years. Um, so, I mean, I have some familiarity with what what life is like there. Um, it's really scary. And, hold on, where's the site? It is very easy to look at it and say, "Oh, well, I'm glad that the rich people are." There's this thing called comeuppance. Um, if you've lived in Southern California your entire life and you see the Pacific Palisades go up in flames, I can understand how someone would be like, you know what, fuck them, fuck you, fuck them. But it's. I mean, I don't think it's that simple. This is something we're going to deal with for years and years to come. Um, and in my opinion, and I don't think this is an unjustified opinion, when the rich get hurt, the poor usually get hurt a lot worse. So there are going to be lots of knock-on effects for working class people in any of this. And if anyone has paid attention to the migrant crisis in the United States or the migrant crisis in Europe, it's extremely clear, the effects of the Syrian civil war and things like that have generated generated is one of the weird Latin kind of words that seems very official and very abstract, but or produced. There's a bunch of people who have to leave because of the chaos that's been created by various policies of various countries, and they need a place to go. We're going to see more of this. I think anybody who follows this channel knows that I love the movie Flow, the animated film about a black cat who's trying to survive a flooded sort of post-human, post-apocalyptic world. But it makes it very clear that when push comes to shove, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to have to leave places like Bangladesh or Congo or wherever. I mean, and it doesn't have to be remote places. It really could be LA, right? That's what this is showing us, is that this climate crisis is not going to only affect people from distant regions that frankly we don't even know exist or care about. So that's why this immediate crisis is so alarming, and I hope it is alarming. I hope it is alarming. I hope it gets people to realize that there are going to be refugees or displaced people from I don't know, Mississippi or Iowa, as much as there are from Syria or Bangladesh or wherever else. That's a big part of it. And I mean, I don't want anybody sort of running laps, laughing at the rich people, because I think that a tenth of what happens to rich people is just a small amount of what's going to happen to everybody else. So we need to be aware of that. I was just thinking about this is kind of an old take, but I was thinking about what President Abraham Lincoln said in the midst of this Great War to end slavery in the United States. Didn't start out that way, but that's what it ended up becoming. And I was thinking when my friends were talking about like rich people on the Pacific Coast Highway or people in the Pacific Palisades like, getting what they deserve. I do understand that, but that's not really where my moral sentiment necessarily falls. Um, but what Lincoln said in his second inaugural, when it was in the middle of this big war, um, he said, "The Almighty has His own purposes. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come. But woe to the man whom the offense cometh. If we shall suppose that American slavery is one of those offenses which, in the province of God, must needs come but which, having continued through his appointed time, he now wills to remove, and that he gives to both North and South this terrible war, as the woe due to those by whom the offense came, shall we discern therein any departure from those divine attributes which the believers in a living God always ascribe to him? Finally, do we hope, and this is the important part, fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass. Yet, if God wills it that it continue until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether." It goes on to be actually more moving in the next paragraph, but what I'm trying to say is, you know, and I haven't said it that clearly, but um, it, rich, powerful people deserve to be punished, in my opinion. But the idea that like somebody's house burnt down or something is like not exactly the kind of justice that I would seek. And I think what Abraham Lincoln was trying to say there is that like there is a reckoning. In his view, God's justice works itself out in a certain way. It's not just about a house burning down. It's not just about vengeance. It is about, like he said, like the every ounce of wealth that was taken from the bondsman through every lash should be repaid by the lash of the sword. Um, I mean, I don't want it to come to that, but the Civil War in the United States was about repaying the hundreds of years of cruelty to the bondsman, i.e., the slave, um, and restoring it. And I don't know if we're exactly in that place right now, but I think everybody knows that we're in a radically unequal and unfair system and society, and that at some point, I hope we never come to another civil war like that, but that things might need to be repaid from the ordinary, like working class, decent, hardworking people who've just had their lives destroyed by these systems that we've created. And, every ounce of that might need to be repaid by the sword or the lash. I do think, I mean, like, in a time in the United States when it seems like um, a lot of things are kind of falling off the rails or the wheels are falling off. it might come to a place where those things need to be directly addressed. I don't know in 2025 if that's the case, but I do think that thinking back on the poetic words of President Lincoln, um, I think that I, I'm not recommending anything in particular. I'm just saying that things might become as untenable and unsupportable as they were during the Civil War. And as President Lincoln said, um, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, that's really important, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we're in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. And I mean, I think that's important. I think what Lincoln is saying is important because um, I don't know when or how it's going to happen, but we will come to a reckoning in our country. And there are going to be different groups who see each other in different ways, but uh, we will come to a reckoning. And we want it to happen in a good way, right? And I don't know what form that will take, but as somebody, I would honestly and frankly say somebody who's on the left, probably not surprising to anyone, but um, we will, I think, in the coming years, need to come together and talk to each other and come to some reasonable conclusion. Um, I mean, I named this episode Mario and Luigi because of um, Luigi Mangione, who, I mean, killed a rich person. And it was kind of unsettling and shocking to people in the elite that, like, wow, a lot of people like this person. I'm not saying Luigi Mangione is a great guy. I'm not like endorsing him, obviously, by any means. But the fact that like so many people instinctively just thought that killing a healthcare CEO was like a kind of a cool, awesome thing to do. I mean, I'm not saying that myself. I'm just saying that look at the response to it. Um, there's a lot of people out there who immediately responded. This were like, I mean, I don't endorse killing anyone, but the fact that there was this instinctive knee-jerk response among quite a few people that this vigilante killing was actually something to be applauded should tell you a lot about where we're at. And so, if we're ever going to figure out how to get out of this nightmare, there will come a moment. Um, I hope I will still be alive when that time comes. When there's like a reckoning and a discussion about how this whole thing works and addressing the very real concerns and problems of ordinary people that are studiously not addressed by the ruling class, whether they're in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. This is not really a political thing exactly, or like in a partisan way. Um, I don't think the Democratic or Republican Party has addressed these problems. So, you know, I do think that this will, I think in the next couple of years, we're going to have some kind of reckoning on these issues. And I do think it's like any body or uh, patient or something, you just see these symptoms and you're like, well, it must mean something, right? Um, we have a lot of symptoms right now. And any person who's not completely dishonest, um, I think, can see that they're leading in a dangerous direction. Um, we've seen all these terrorist attacks, all these school shootings. There's something wrong here, and whether it leads in a partisan Democratic or Republican direction, or liberal or conservative, or left or right, um, something has to change. And I think everybody instinctively kind of knows that. So I'm not making a case for anything on one side or the other, but something has to happen. I think the campaigns of people like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are signs that, like, people are not happy with the way things are. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for putting up with me, and I will talk to you next time. All right. Well, this is the end of Radio Free Gastonia. Okay.